You ever feel like the odds are stacked so high against you that it's almost laughable to even try? Like the world just looks at you and says, nah, you're not it. Well, let me tell you about this ancient story. Man versus monster, small versus giant. It's the David and Goliath story. Now, don't get caught up in the Sunday school version of it. Strip it down to its bones, and what you have is the most badass underdog moment in human history. No armor, no sword, just one guy who said, screw the odds, I'm not backing down. And that's the kind of energy you need to bring to your life when everything's telling you to quit. People love comfort, but this guy walked straight into the fire with nothing but courage and a rock. That's not religion. That's mindset. That's raw, primal instinct. That's confidence born from struggle. And the moment you understand that the size of your enemy doesn't matter as much as the size of your resolve, your whole damn life changes. Odds don't mean a damn thing if your mindset is stronger. You could be broke, alone, tired, and completely outmatched on paper. But if your mind is locked in, if you've made peace with the fight ahead of you, you become a different kind of animal. The world loves numbers. People will throw statistics at you like grenades. They'll say you're not tall enough, not smart enough, not rich enough, not connected enough. They'll show you graphs and charts that scream you're not supposed to win. But here's the thing no one tells you. None of that matters if you refuse to listen. Mindset is the cheat code. It's the invisible weapon no one can see coming, because when you're dialed in mentally, the rest becomes noise. Look at the gym. Two people show up, one with the perfect body, clean diet, genetically gifted. The other is overweight, exhausted, self-conscious. But the second one is there every single day, doesn't skip, doesn't whine, doesn't quit. A year later, guess who's unrecognizable? Not the guy with the six-pack from the start. It's the one who refused to back down, even when everything told him he should. The one who decided, screw the odds, I'm showing up anyway. Mindset beats talent when talent checks out. Every time. This applies to business too. How many billion-dollar companies were started by people who had no clue what they were doing? They didn't have MBAS. They didn't have fancy investors. They just had a relentless belief that they could build something from nothing. And they failed again and again, but they didn't stop. Because their mind was stronger than their situation, they were willing to keep swinging even if the world was laughing at them. And at some point, they hit. Not because the odds changed, but because they changed. Think about fighters. The most terrifying ones are never the biggest guys in the cage. It's the ones who've been to hell and made peace with it. The ones who've been counted out, humiliated, pushed to the edge, and kept moving forward. That kind of experience forges a mindset that doesn't flinch. It's not about height, weight, or reach. It's about the refusal to quit. When your soul is unshakable, when your why is bigger than your pain, you become unstoppable. Everybody wants the shortcut. Everybody wants the perfect plan. But life doesn't work like that. Life throws chaos, heartbreak, setbacks, and pressure, and most people break under it. But the ones who don't, they become legends, not because they had better odds, but because they had a stronger mind. They had this fire inside that didn't need approval, didn't need a guarantee, didn't care about the scoreboard. They just kept going. Look at your own life. How many times have you stopped before even starting, just because the numbers didn't add up? How many dreams have you buried because someone told you the odds were against you? And how many people have you seen crush it? Not because they had the most, but because they believed the deepest. That's the real game. That's the whole secret. It's not about removing fear. It's about becoming so locked in that fear has no place to live in your mind. When your purpose is bigger than your excuse, when your mindset is built like steel, the odds don't stand a chance. The world might still count you out, but your belief will keep moving like a freight train. You won't be waiting for motivation. You won't be begging for signs. You'll be too busy proving the numbers wrong with every step you take. That's when life gets real. That's when people start asking how you did it, and you just smile because they never saw the war you fought in your own mind. Goliaths are real, but so is courage. Every single person walking this planet has faced something that looked too big to beat. Maybe it's debt piling up while you're barely holding on. Maybe it's a broken relationship that shattered your confidence. Maybe it's waking up every day feeling like a failure because the dreams you once had feel miles away. And then there it is, your own personal Goliath, huge, loud, intimidating. And just like in that old story, It stands there daring you to try, mocking you, reminding you that you're small, that you don't belong, that you should just accept your place in the shadows. But here's what most people miss. Goliaths aren't just physical. They're not just people or problems. They're the voices in your head that whisper doubt. They're the failures that play on loop. They're fear wearing a mask that looks like reality. But courage is the quiet decision to show up anyway. Courage doesn't scream. It doesn't need applause. It's that moment when you're shaking inside, heart pounding, stomach tight, and you still take the damn step forward. That's real courage. Not the absence of fear, but walking forward while fear tries to grab your ankles. Imagine a student failing every class, thinking it's over, thinking they're just not smart enough. Every test is another Goliath, but one day they stop letting the grades define them. They start studying at night, asking for help, pushing themselves past their limits. They still feel the fear, but they don't let it win, and slowly they rise. Not because the classes got easier, but because they finally believed they could fight back. That's courage. Or think about someone stuck in a toxic job. The boss hates them. Coworkers ignore them. They feel like a ghost in a building full of noise. But instead of staying silent, instead of breaking under pressure, they update their resume. They start applying. They learn new skills at night while everyone else is sleeping, and one day they leave, not in anger, not in bitterness, but in power. That's how you slay a Goliath in real life. Not by yelling, by moving. Even addiction, even depression, they're Goliaths too. They tower over people's lives, casting long shadows. But there are people who wake up every day and fight back. They don't always win the first round. Sometimes they fall. Sometimes they break, but they don't give up. They get back up with bruised knuckles and bleeding hearts, and they swing again. And that swing, that's the most powerful thing a human being can do. Courage isn't pretty. It's messy. It's lonely. It's raw, but it's real. And you've seen it in your own life, haven't you? That moment where everything screamed at you to quit, but something deeper told you to keep going. When the pain was louder than the progress, but you kept pushing anyway. That wasn't luck. That wasn't chance. That was courage showing up in your bones, telling you this fight is still yours. And what happens when you step up to your Goliath with that kind of fire? Even giants get nervous. Even giants start to shake, because courage is contagious. It spreads from your soul to your actions, and suddenly the impossible starts to crack, slowly, quietly, but surely. Goliaths are real, no doubt. But courage, that invisible armor, that fire in your gut when everyone else walks away, that's real too. And it hits harder than anything fear can throw at you. Don't wait for someone to give you permission. Most people die with their dreams still locked inside them, not because they weren't capable, but because they were waiting for a green light, for a sign, for someone to tap them on the shoulder and say, no, you're ready. But life doesn't work like that. Nobody's coming to save you. Nobody's coming to hand you the key. The truth is, the door isn't even locked. You just haven't had the guts to push it open. We're trained from day one to seek approval. From teachers, from bosses, from friends, from strangers online, we've been wired to believe that our worth is based on someone else's opinion. But you don't need a license to chase your passion. You don't need applause to be valid. You need guts. You need that moment where you say, I'm going, even if nobody claps for me. Think about the artist who's never shown their work. Incredible talent, soul poured into every stroke, but too afraid to share because no one told them they're good enough. They wait years for recognition, for someone to validate what they already know deep inside. Then one day, they post one piece online, not because someone told them to, but because they finally realized their voice mattered. And boom, it resonates. Not because it was perfect, but because it was real. All that time wasted waiting, and the only thing missing was permission from themselves or the guy who hates his job, clocking in every day just to survive. He dreams of opening his own gym, of teaching people discipline and growth through movement. But no one's handing him a startup fund, no investors knocking on his door. So he thinks maybe next year, maybe when the timing's better, maybe when someone tells me I'm qualified. And while he's waiting, time slips away, years vanish, until one day he stops waiting, starts coaching a few friends in the park, builds a community, gets traction, opens a garage gym, and it grows. Not because someone handed him the blueprint, but because he stopped asking for permission to matter. Even in relationships, people stay silent. They wait for someone else to speak first. They wait for the perfect moment to say what they feel. But life isn't a rehearsal. The clock is ticking. People lose chances every day because they're scared of being too much, too early, too honest. But the ones who win are the ones who speak up, who move, who act, not recklessly, but fearlessly. You've got ideas, things that burn inside your chest, things you think about when you can't sleep. Maybe it's a business, maybe it's a book, maybe it's walking away from something toxic. Whatever it is, you don't need a certificate to start. You don't need a crowd cheering you on. Most people won't understand until they see the results anyway. The real ones, the ones who leave impact, they move before the crowd, they bet on themselves. They don't ask for permission to take the shot. They take it even if their hands are shaking. This world wasn't built by people who waited. It was built by people who moved while everyone else hesitated. You've been taught to stay in line, to be polite, to wait your turn. But turns are illusions. Time doesn't care about your place in line. Time rewards the bold. The truth is, the moment you stop waiting, the game changes. You realize the doors were always open, and the only thing stopping you was the story you kept telling yourself about why you weren't ready. But you always use what you've got, not what you don't. People spend so much of their lives staring at what they don't have that they forget what's already in their hands. They say things like, if only I had more money, if only I had the right connections, if only I looked like that, or if only I had that gear, that setup, that environment. And while they sit there waiting for the perfect tools, someone else is out there building an empire with scraps. It's not about having the best setup. It's about being the one who actually moves. The truth is, every legend you've ever heard of started with less than what they needed, but they didn't wait for more. They flipped what they had into something that mattered. Think about the kid with no gym membership who trains every single day in a park, no fancy equipment, just a pull-up bar, the ground, and discipline. People walk past him, headphones in, ignoring him like he's invisible, but he shows up. Rain, heat, cold, it doesn't matter. And eventually, you see the transformation, not just in his body, but in his presence. He didn't wait to be gifted a top-tier gym. He turned the world into his training ground. That's power. That's using what you've got instead of wishing for more. Look at someone with a broken phone filming videos, not the latest iPhone, no lighting setup, no crew, just passion and consistency, and those clips, raw and unfiltered, start to catch fire online. People relate because it's real, and soon that same broken phone is responsible for building a whole brand, a whole identity, not because it was perfect, but because it was authentic. Too many people think they need the best camera to tell their story. They forget that the story itself is what moves people. Even in the workplace, you'll see it. Someone with all the qualifications, all the degrees, sitting still, doing the bare minimum. Meanwhile, another person with half the resume is hustling, learning, creating, solving problems with limited tools and insane hunger. And guess who gets noticed? Not the one with the polished background, but the one who works with what they have like it's gold. You've got something in you right now that you're underestimating. Maybe it's your way with people. Maybe it's your story. Maybe it's your pain. You think you need to wait until you're healed, until you're perfect, until everything lines up. But all that's doing is slowing you down. Perfection is a trap. It's just fear in disguise. What you need is to look at what's already inside you and realize it's more than enough to begin. The greatest warriors in history didn't always have the best weapons, but they knew how to use them with deadly focus. The difference between the person who starts and the one who waits isn't talent, it's perspective. The starter looks at their tools and says, "This will do." The one who waits says, "This isn't enough." And that simple shift is the gap between movement and mediocrity. You don't need 1,000,000 followers to have influence. You don't need a perfect plan to start building. You don't need every piece in place to begin the puzzle. You just need to stop staring at what you lack and start using what's in your hands like it's the most valuable thing on earth. Because to someone out there, it might be, and that mindset, that fierce, relentless resourcefulness, is the thing that turns rocks into weapons and ordinary people into giants. The power is in preparation, not appearance. People are obsessed with how things look. We scroll past images, judge people in seconds, and fall for the illusion that success has to look a certain way. The cars, the clothes, the smiles, the filtered highlight reels. But that's not where the real game is played. The real game happens in silence, behind closed doors, when nobody's watching. That's where preparation lives. Not in the spotlight, not in the applause, but in the lonely hours when you're grinding with no recognition. Appearance might fool the crowd, but preparation wins the war. Look at a fighter. In the ring, all eyes are on them. People cheer when the punches land, when the knockouts come. But nobody sees the thousands of hours in the gym, the early mornings, the bruised ribs, the days when their bodies screamed to quit and they kept pushing appearances. That one night under the lights. Preparation is what got them there. The world celebrates performance, but it's preparation that makes performance even possible. Think about the student who doesn't raise their hand in class, who doesn't seem like they're doing anything special. They're quiet, overlooked. Not flashy, but at home, they're studying harder than anyone, reading ahead, solving problems, building a mind that's sharp like a blade. Then exam day comes, and suddenly they crush it, not because they talk big, but because they prepared big. Nobody saw the work, but now everyone sees the result. That's the kind of quiet strength people underestimate. Even in the gym, you see people lifting heavy, showing off. Loud grunts, big movements, trying to get attention. But there's always that one person in the corner with perfect form, moving slow, controlled, locked in, not trying to impress, just trying to improve. And over time, they're the ones who transform the most because they didn't show up to be seen. They showed up to sharpen. That's what preparation does. It separates those who look strong from those who actually are. Success doesn't care how good you look. Life doesn't reward style over substance. You can wear the nicest suit in the room, but if you haven't prepared for the opportunity, you'll crumble the second the pressure hits. You can talk big all day, but when it's time to deliver, preparation is the only thing that shows up for you. No one can fake the work. No one can cheat the grind. When the lights hit and it's just you and the challenge, the only thing that answers is what you did in the dark. Look at your own journey. How many times have you felt behind just because someone else looked more successful? Because their page was shinier, their style was louder, their life seemed bigger. But behind all that is a truth most won't admit. Most people are scared of preparation. They want the reward without the repetition. But the ones who win, the ones who stay winning, they fall in love with the process. They fall in love with being ready, with sharpening the blade day after day, even if no one sees it. They don't need to talk about what they're building because they know the results will speak louder than words ever could. Preparation is where confidence is born, not fake confidence, not arrogance, but real grounded confidence, the kind that can walk into any room, face any challenge, and say, I've already put in the work. You can't buy that. You can't fake that. You can only earn it minute by minute, rep by rep, sacrifice by sacrifice. And the world might not clap for you while you're preparing, but one day when the time comes, they won't be able to ignore you. Because when you're prepared, even the giants look small, fear is loud. But so is purpose. Fear knows how to make noise. It shows up with a megaphone, screaming all the worst case scenarios into your mind. It tells you you're going to fail. It tells you they're going to laugh. It tells you that you're not ready, not smart enough, not strong enough, not good enough. And the worst part is, it doesn't whisper, it shouts, it echoes, it repeats itself until you start to believe it. And the moment you believe it, it wins, because fear doesn't have to be right. It just has to be louder than your purpose. But that's where everything can shift if you're willing to let your purpose speak back. Purpose doesn't yell, it doesn't need to. It's calm, steady, quiet, but unbreakable. Purpose isn't emotional like fear, it's rooted. It's that reason you wake up early even when you're exhausted. It's that thing inside you that tells you to try again even after you've failed 10 times. It's that quiet fire in your chest that keeps burning no matter how cold the world gets. And when you turn the volume down on fear long enough to hear your purpose again, everything changes. Imagine someone wanting to start a business. Fear is right there from day one, screaming about the money they don't have, the chances of failure, the risk of embarrassment. Fear paints vivid pictures of collapse. And for a while, they listen, they freeze, they stall. But then purpose taps them on the shoulder and reminds them why they even had the idea in the first place. It reminds them of the people they want to help, the impact they want to make, the life they want to live. And when they listen to that voice, they take the first step and then another. And soon fear isn't gone, but it's not steering the ship anymore. Think about an athlete recovering from injury. Fear tells them they'll never be the same. Fear tells them every movement is a risk. Fear wants them to play it safe, to give up. But purpose whispers, remember who you are. Remember why you started. Remember the kid who dreamed of this. And that's what gets them back in the gym. That's what helps them fight through the pain day after day, inch by inch. Fear is loud, but purpose is relentless, and relentless always beats loud. Even in everyday life, it shows up. The parent who's terrified they're not doing enough for their kids. The student who's scared of failure. The artist who's afraid no one will care about their work. Fear shows up for everyone. Nobody is immune, but purpose shows up too. And the difference is, most people don't give their purpose enough room to speak. They let fear dominate the conversation. They feed it, they water it, and then wonder why they feel stuck. But if you flip it, if you feed your purpose instead, everything starts to move. You don't have to eliminate fear. That's the lie. Fear isn't something you kill. It's something you carry differently. You just have to stop letting it drive. You have to choose to listen to the quieter voice, the one that comes from your gut, from your why, from the vision you have that won't leave you alone. Because fear will always be loud, but when you walk in your purpose, when you know what you stand for and why you're here, that voice gets stronger. It grows, it steadies you. It reminds you that you were built for more than survival. It reminds you that every time fear says, what if you fall? Purpose says, what if you fly? Giants fall fast when you strike first. Most people lose the battle before it even begins, not because they aren't strong enough, not because they aren't capable, but because they hesitate, they freeze, they wait for the perfect time, the perfect plan, the perfect moment that never comes. They let the size of the giant intimidate them instead of trusting the strength they already carry. But the truth is, the first strike changes everything. The first move, the first step, the first act of courage, it shatters fear and sends a message not just to the world, but to your own mind that you're not backing down. Think about a boxer in the ring. Both fighters are tense, waiting, analyzing, reading each other's energy. But the one who throws the first punch, who steps in with aggression, with intent, immediately shifts the balance. That first strike isn't just physical, it's psychological, it's bold. It says, I'm not afraid of you. And even if the giant is stronger, even if the odds are against you, that first move creates momentum. It puts you in control. It tells fear that you're not here to bow. You're here to break through. Look at life outside the ring. There's the person who's been dreaming of starting a business for years. The idea is there, the vision is clear, but fear keeps them stuck. They keep researching, planning, doubting, until one day they launch. Maybe it's messy, maybe it's small, but it's real. And that first sale, that first client, it hits like a punch that wakes them up. Suddenly, the giant of self-doubt looks a lot smaller because action builds belief. That first move silences all the voices that said it couldn't be done. Or think about the person who's been holding back from speaking their truth. Maybe it's a conversation they've avoided. Maybe it's feelings they've buried. Fear tells them to stay quiet. But then they choose to speak, voice shaking, heart racing, but they speak. And in that moment, the giant of anxiety shrinks, not because the fear disappeared, but because courage spoke louder. That first word, that first sentence, it opens the door to freedom. And once the door's open, there's no going back. You can see it even in the gym. Someone walks in for the first time, out of shape, self-conscious, overwhelmed. They could leave. They could make excuses, but they walk to the treadmill. They hit start. That single action is a strike, a direct hit against the giant of insecurity. And that simple act changes everything. Because the hardest part isn't lifting the weights, it's walking through the door. It's proving to yourself that you won't let fear call the shots. The first strike doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be real. Giants are built on delay. They grow while you hesitate. They feed on the time you waste wondering if you're ready. But once you move, once you act, once you strike, their power begins to crumble. They're not as big as you made them out to be. They never were. The mind builds monsters bigger than they are, but action cuts them down. When you strike first, you remind yourself that you're not a spectator in your own life. You're not here to play defense. You're here to attack, to chase, to conquer. And sometimes it's not about winning instantly. It's about showing up and swinging before fear locks you in place. Because when you take that first shot, with your whole heart. Giants don't stand a chance. You were never meant to play small. This world wasn't designed to be tiptoed through. It was made to be challenged, stretched, conquered. And the giants you face, whether it's fear, failure, rejection, self-doubt, or the voices that told you you're not enough, they were never there to stop you. They were there to reveal you, to show you what happens when you decide to stop shrinking. The story of David and Goliath isn't about size, it's about spirit. It's about someone with no armor, no applause, no backup, still choosing to step forward when no one else would. And that's what your life needs right now. Not more advice, not more comfort. It needs that one fierce moment where you say, I'm done waiting, I'm done doubting. I'm done being afraid of the size of the battle because the fire inside me burns bigger than the fear in front of me. You have what it takes, not because life made it easy, but because life made you relentless. You've fallen, and yet here you are. You've been hurt, and still you rise. You've been overlooked, underpaid, underestimated, but somehow your heart still beats with purpose. That's not weakness. That's power. That's the kind of strength the world can't calculate. People talk about statistics. They talk about odds. But you are not a number. You are a storm waiting to be unleashed. Your story might be messy. Your journey might be uneven. But nothing great ever came from perfect paths. The strongest steel is forged in fire, and every setback you've endured was preparing you, shaping you, sharpening you into the kind of person who doesn't just survive giants, you slay them. You have to stop asking for signs and start becoming one. Become the proof that anything is possible. Become the one who didn't quit when it got dark. The one who turned silence into strength and pressure into power. Your mind is your weapon. Your purpose is your armor, and your actions, those fearless steps you take when no one's watching, those are your stones, small but deadly. People will look at you and say you were lucky. They'll say you had something special. But they won't see the war you fought in silence. They won't see the days you cried, the nights you questioned everything, the moments you almost gave up. They won't see the pain behind the progress, but that's okay, because you'll know, and that knowing, that deep, unshakable truth that you earned every step forward, is something no one can ever take from you. You don't need a sword to win. You just need a reason. You just need that thing in your heart that burns loud enough to silence the noise. When fear screams, you speak purpose. When doubt whispers, you shout action. When giants rise, you rise higher. Because greatness isn't loud, it's consistent. It's doing the work when no one's clapping. It's staying in the fight long after others have walked away. You want legacy. It's built one choice at a time, one brave move in the face of overwhelming odds, one moment where you said, I'm not backing down. The future belongs to the bold, to the ones who dared to strike first, to the ones who used what they had instead of waiting for what they didn't, to the ones who chose courage over comfort, purpose over fear, fire over excuses. It's your turn, your fight, your story. Don't wait for someone to crown you. Forge your own crown, and when you stand tall, after the dust settles, when the giant is lying at your feet, you'll realize something that changes everything. What scared you was never stronger than what lived inside you all along. As the saying goes, it's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog. So fight, move, strike, and write your name in the ashes of every giant that thought you wouldn't make it.